Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. And here's the question. Maybe you've asked, does my song need to be mastered? A variation of this question is, I think my song needs to be mastered, but can I just master it while I mix? So the answer is, it depends. If you are working on an album or an EP where you've got a collection of songs, mastering means something specific to you. If you're just working on a single, you just have that one song you're writing, recording, you want to get it up there and release it on Spotify, mastering can look a little different. So, I'm going to talk to you if you're just working on a single, okay? Because mastering, if you have an album, is a necessary step, and you can't do it while you mix because you have to complete each mix and then bring those mixes into a separate session or a piece of mastering software and work your magic on them together, not just to make them sound different, but really to make sure there's consistency across the songs. Because one song might have been mixed quieter than the other song, one song might have way more low end than the other song. Even if you mix them all yourself, there might be inconsistencies because you mixed them each in isolation. So your job as the mastering engineer there is to get the level the same, get the tonal balance ish the same, and then you can apply limiting and do loudness and any kind of enhancement that you want later. But it's really about creating consistency from song to song. Let's say you're not doing that. Let's say you're just working on one song. You've recorded it, you are mixing it, it sounds good, you're proud of it, but you want to release it and you're not sure if mastering is a thing that's necessary, or is that just a term? Is that just something if you have an album? Here's what you're probably looking for. You're probably looking for volume. You're probably saying, hey, my mix is a little too quiet. Okay. If that's a problem, go watch my video on how to get loud mixes in 60 seconds. Okay. This is a fast and simple way to quote unquote master your song. Now, I'm doing a disservice to mastering engineers when I just say it's about loudness, but if we're being honest, that's usually where we're stuck. If you've done a good job recording and mixing, you shouldn't need to do anything else to your song but get the level up to commercial standards because that's usually what's missing. My mixes are nice and quiet while I'm mixing them. If I need to hear them louder, I just turn up my speakers, but I keep conservative levels, I keep plenty of headroom, and I just craft a good mix. I don't worry about level in terms of getting as loud as I want until the mastering phase because that's where you bring in a limiter and that's where you can get the average volume up. So if it's just one song, you don't need to render your song down, bounce it down to a stereo file, and then re import it into a session and then master it. You can just throw a limiter as the final plugin on your master fader. Maybe it's the only plugin on your master fader. If you're like me, I got a lot of plugins on my master fader. But the point is, the limiter is the final plugin that gets your mix to commercial standards. So, in essence, does your song need to be mastered? It needs to be loud, not crazy loud, but it needs to be loud enough. That's pretty easy to do. Does it need to be tweaked or processed or have stereo width or more compression or saturation? I don't think so. Those are things I'd rather do in the mix. If you are a solo musician or a band doing it yourself, don't save anything for mastering. That doesn't make any sense. That's just lazy, right? Why would you defer completion of your craft or your song, your masterpiece to somebody else? Your song should sound amazing on recording day, and then it should sound even better on mixing day. And that mix should be pretty much what you're trying to get. That should be the final result. The only missing piece being level. So, does your song need to be mastered? Well, yeah, it needs to be loud enough. Do you have to do that in a separate session? Can I mix it and master it all in the same session? Yes, you can mix it, master it all in the same session. Just work on the mix first, do your referencing, check it on different systems, make sure it sounds good. And when you're ready to release it, then use limiting, and you can do it all in the same session. An alternative is to use something like Lander or eMastered, which are online mastering services that are basically it's a robot, it's an algorithm that has been programmed to listen to your mix, compare it to professional masters of a variety of genres and loudness levels and things like that, and see what are the differences in level and stereo width and EQ curve and dynamic range and things like that. And then they use all these tools: EQ, multiband compression, exciting, saturation, limiting, stereo widening to take the gap between your mix and the professional masters and just close that gap a lot more. So I've kind of covered both of those on the channel before. You can check out those videos. But that's an alternative too, where you just wrap your mix up, don't do any limiting, just render the mix down and then upload it to one of those services. Or, of course, you can hire a human, a good old fashioned mastering engineer, which will do the same thing that the robot's trying to do, which is analyze your song, compare it to final professional masters, and see what's the gap there. The beauty of having a mastering engineer or a robot doing it for you is that they aren't close to your song. They aren't in your room with your unique sonic situation. They might hear something that's missing, that would have been fixed in the mix had you heard it. It's not that mastering is the special sauce. It's just that you may not hear it in the mix. And that's a huge benefit of having a mastering engineer or a machine who's sounds good enough to take a listen to your song and enhance it. Either way, don't feel like if you can't afford a mastering engineer or for some reason you can't afford Lander or eMastered, that you got to do something crazy or you got to do more stuff to your song in the mastering phase. Don't. The mastering phase shouldn't be very much heavy lifting. It shouldn't be heavy lifting at all. If it is heavy lifting, that means you didn't do a good enough job in the mixing phase, which goes back. The mix needs to be better. Needs to be better. So, again, short answer, can you master your song as you mix? Yes, just do it at the end with a limiter. There's alternatives. I know that's overly simplified, but that's primarily what you need. You need level, and that's what we're looking at to get it on Spotify, to get it on Apple Music, even YouTube, and they all adjust the level a bit, but you need to get closer to that commercial level, and you can do that with a basic limiter. So, two questions for you. One, do you master your own music? Leave a comment below. Let me know if you self master. Two, let me know if you've ever hired a mastering engineer or used a service like eMastered or Lander. I'd love to know your thoughts on those experiences. I've done all of it. I've mastered myself, I've used the robots, and I've hired professional mastering engineers multiple times. I'd love to hear if you've done either of those and what your experience has been. Leave a comment below and let's have a discussion. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. It means a ton. And I'll see you on another video real soon.